What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast with myself, Luke. I'm joined by Wes and Dave, as always. We're also joined by Henry as well to discuss everything to do with Spurs Crystal Palace and have a little bit of Crystal Palace chat, due to the fact that they might be in an FA Cup final. But if you are new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well. And if you're listening on any podcast platform, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. Let's go around the houses, see how everyone is. Wes, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I've just about woken myself up from the absolute snooze fest this afternoon. But yeah, I don't think we'll be talking about that one for too long tonight. But yeah, no, other than that, all good, all good. So yeah, looking forward to this one for sure.
Amazing. And Dave, how are you, mate?
Oh yeah, mate. I'm all good. I've put my back out, and I think I put my back out because I've been carrying Tottenham's morale on my back all season. But less said about Tottenham. But life of a Spurs fan, mate. Here we go again. The relegation battle.
Mate. We should change the name of the channel to Old Pod Lads, probably to because Dave said before we started that he's put his back out, getting out of his car. So if you can relate to that, then you're old enough to watch the show. But Henry, making your debut on the channel, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, guys. I'm good. Having a little nice weekend away with the missus family. So, yeah, excited to get back tomorrow to watch Palace Forest. But other than that, yeah, just been a nice chill one.
Amazing, that's lovely. Bank holiday, isn't it, as well, for those that aren't like me and Wes, who have to support ourselves and so have to probably work tomorrow. So good luck to all of you on Super Sunday today. Right, let's just get into it, lads, and let's talk about Spurs West Ham. Finished 1-1, as Wes said. Not really much to talk about today. Loads of changes from Ange Postecoglou, Wes, pretty much like as we would expect. The league is done. Like, we're clearly not bothered about it anymore. Everything's going on that Europa League basket. Same with Manchester United. What do you reckon to today's game?
Yeah, definitely last on match of the day vibes, 100%. 90 minutes of my life I will never get back. That is for sure. I think it was just a tale of two teams, I think the game kind of sums up both teams' seasons, where there's not much really happening, not much going on, and a real kind of distinct lack of quality, throughout. And I think sort of both teams, you'd argue, probably cancelled each other out. I think on the whole, on the balance of play, I think West Ham potentially just shaded it. But yeah, I think other than that, it was kind of, it is what it is. Two struggling teams, sort of not really in any kind of form whatsoever, and like I say, just a real lack of quality. I think both clubs kind of want the season over and done with so they can rebuild, regroup in the summer, and then go again next season.
Definitely. Jay said in the comments here, well, I guess a draw is better than a loss. We move on to the competition we are actually more interested in, calling you Spurs. So, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it, really? Like West Ham, they aren't going to do much better than they're already at. They haven't got anything else to play for. We've got hopefully, fingers crossed, the Europa League final to look at, and we kind of move on to that. But where's your dad's in saying evening, people? Calling you Spurs, evening. And Dave, what did you think of the game today? Snooze fest, war fest.
About the same, I think, of Tottenham all season, mate. Fucking shit. It's probably the only word I can say for it. We are pathetic to what I just don't understand, and I'm not going to dig into Ange right now because the league don't mean shit. All the changes obviously would have made a difference, but it's been the same all season. We are so open, it's crazy. It's absolutely insanity. It's like we don't have a defensive plan. We're just like, we bomb forward, and then it's like 3-on-3 or 4-on-2, or like I don't understand the defensive plan. I think a big thing for me is if we do win the Europa League and Ange does stay, then that's got to be something they speak about at board level, because it's a hard watch, mate. It's not fun to watch anymore. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll definitely discuss at some point, maybe not this week, but towards the future. I tell you what, next week let's discuss, if we get to the Europa League final, let's have a discussion on Ange Postecoglou, because my opinions on him are still that I do like him, but it's like I just don't see him being our manager next season. But just see how the board could deal with it. But Henry, I won't talk to you about the Spurs game because obviously it wasn't on telly and you were away this weekend, so I doubt you even saw it. But what are your kind of thoughts from a not necessarily from a Palace side, but what are your thoughts kind of from an outsider's point of view on Spurs this season?
Well, I mean, I've always said that I think that Spurs are just a bigger version of Palace, kind of underachieving to where maybe they could be. I've been disappointed. Obviously, league-wise, it's been awful. I don't think any of you will mind me saying that. I thought you signed some exciting players. I thought that there was maybe a chance that you could kind of kick on and do something quite good this year. But I mean, obviously, we await to see what happens in the Europa League final, which I assume you'll be getting to at this rate. Touch wood, but yeah, just disappointing. I think you've got some great players, and yeah, just, for some reason it hasn't clicked. Whether that's Ange's fault, whether that's I mean, Aussie Ange in the comments won't be happy with that.
Is Aussie Ange winning by any chance? Anything Ange is great as elite is making barbecues, mate, and smoking fags. That's literally it at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's just I'd just say disappointing. Really, obviously, as a fellow Premier League fan, I'm not exactly hoping for other teams to do really well, especially if it's not at our expense. But we're not normally battling in the same parts of the table as Spurs. So yeah, just disappointing. I'm not surprised a lot of you are understandably frustrated.
Yeah, definitely. Quick question for you, like from your perspective, if it's your football club, and imagine you're a Spurs fan right now, right? And you go on and win the Europa League, let's say, with Ange Postecoglou. Do you want to keep that manager, or do you think it is so far gone that he has to go, regardless of the outcome?
I wouldn't want to keep him, but at the same time, I think in Spurs' isolated example with the chairman that you've got, I think that if he was to win it, then that's it, he will be staying. I can't see Levy getting rid of him. Doesn't matter how much noise Spurs fans make. He doesn't seem like the kind of owner to kind of give into that fan pressure. Obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think club-wise, they won't sack him if you win the Europa League. But as a fan, you take that Europa League away. I always say in kind of on my own Twitter and stuff that I think that the most difficult part about Europa League and Conference League is getting into it. I think that the majority of Premier League teams would probably reach the semi-finals, finals of those tournaments. Hence why 17th and 16th place in the Premier League this year are in the semi-finals and could well be in the final as well. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a tough one. As a fan, I think I'd be looking at that league form, and that can't happen next season.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with that. Let's jump into a couple of comments really quickly. So David Clark has said hi to everyone in the chat. Bissouma, apart from holding the ball too long, on a couple of occasions played all right. Tell had an excellent first half, but picked the wrong options in the second half. Not Spence's best day, and Ben Davis is Ben Davis. And then Aussie Ange has said, sports dynasties can't be built in a year or two. Most of us Spurs supporters have been through enough turbulent years to know how to cope with disappointment. It's an interesting point, and like this could be like a real comment. This could just be a wind-up. Who knows, right? But from like this perspective, this is something that I agree with. Like that, if you're going to go for a rebuild, it is going to take time, and there are going to be ups and downs. Like I also kind of agree with you, Henry. Like if a manager comes in and wins, let's be honest, right? If he comes in and wins first European trophy for 4 decades. He's only like the 4th manager to ever get to a European semi-final, regardless of like whether Spurs should get there, shouldn't get there, like whether they're the best team in the Europa League or not. Like if he goes on and wins it, then that's something special in terms of like this football club. But what will probably end up happening, which is really sad, is he'll go down as another mediocre Spurs manager just happened to win the Europa League. It's like really like difficult one for me on as an out kind of like on a like fence sitter as I am right now to like comprehend that he could then be sacked. But whereas I won't talk to you too much about it now because we'll go on about it next week should we get the to Europa League final. But before we get on to those Bodo Glimt games, let's talk Henry a little bit about Crystal Palace. So obviously we've got the game next weekend, but before that you've got Forest at home tomorrow night, 8 p.m. kickoff. What are your thoughts with that? Because you guys are doing well at the moment in the league. Forest have had a little bit of a blip. What are your thoughts coming into that game tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think firstly I'd say that we obviously had those 2 heavy defeats to Newcastle and City. I think that a lot of outside noise has been made of that, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, Palace back to their level. But actually, I think it was quite those results. If you talk to Palace fans, they'd say they're quite important results. They're kind of grounding, if you like, especially leading up to that semi-final. To then bounce back with a good result away at Arsenal before we went to Wembley. And I mean, I'm sure you guys might have seen the highlights. We absolutely picked Villa apart, as we have done time and time again since Glasner came in. We're somewhat of a bogey team for them. So yeah, we're on good form, and the vibes are extremely high around the club. Even when we lost those 2 games to City and Newcastle, I think what you've got at Palace at the moment is a tight knit squad that kind of is more of a family than anything else, and they kind of more as fans, we feel more connected to our players than we have in a long time. We definitely, obviously, been in the Premier League for 11 years now, and it's kind of was great at the start, and then stagnated for a bit, especially under Hodgson, and then Vieira. A bit of life didn't quite work. Hodgson comes back, and then Glasner comes in, and it's just been such a breath of fresh air. So yeah, I mean, it's the case of a team that's on good form going into tomorrow against a team that's not on such great form. I watched the Forest Brentford game earlier in the week, and I wasn't impressed by Forest. I mean, Brentford are a good side, of course, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those where, I mean, it will be classic Palace, and we'll end up losing by 1 or 2 goals. It'll be a tight game, but. No, I'm always looking forward to Palace matches at the moment, which is nice because there was there was just a big chunk of time, especially under Hodgson, where you kind of felt it was a chore to watch Palace, and I'm sure you guys have felt the same about Spurs at times as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's weird as well because, you talk about Vieira and we look at him as kind of like one of these managers that didn't do that well, but then when you look at like signings that came through under his like tenure, actually some of them are like outstanding, players that now play for Palace, or you've moved on. So it's really interesting on that. But I'll come back in a minute and we'll talk about Glasner, because I think he's a really interesting manager and like a real coup for, no offense, like for Palace to get when they got him. But I want to talk to you guys quickly about Palace Forest tomorrow night. Palace sitting in 12th, Forest are in 6th. Forest have had a bit of a dip in form. Like, what do you reckon is going to happen tomorrow night?
I think we'll see a kind of classic in terms of stylistically, in terms of the way that the teams play. Obviously, huge feature of Forest this season has been sitting in and hitting teams on the counter. I expect nothing less tomorrow night. It'll be interesting to see if Palace really go for it and really go at Forest. I think Palace have got this good balance with, and I think this comes from Glasner in the sense that they can sort of defend quite deep and really structured and be really compact and can break on teams, but also, I mean, they've got, the second coming of Michael Carrick, as I say, in one of my favourite players in the Premier League, in Adam Wharton, who's just got that ability to dictate a game and play it at his speed. He picks 9 times out of 10 for me, he picks the right pass at the right time. This was why I was very, very keen on us signing him in January last year, because he would have just fit that number 6 position for us so well. And now you're talking about a 50-60 million pound player, and Henry's probably looking at me going 50-60 million, like, yeah, what game do you want him for? Type of thing. He's been that good for Palace and he's been that key. I think obviously the key areas, Palace's wing backs, Munoz has loved to get forward, chipped in with a few goals and assists, but you can't look past that Forest front three as well. That's if they play with Elanga, Wood and Hudson-Odoi. I think Nuno's changed it a little bit at times. And it's been like a Gibbs-White off of one flank and Elanga or Hudson-Odoi. So it's one or the other supporting Chris Wood. I have a feeling Nuno will try and match up as well to Palace's 3 at the back. And again, just kind of sit in and just make life really, really difficult for Palace. And it's a case of like, right, you come and break us down and, we'll hit you on the counter.
No, fair enough. And, I'll read that comment out by the end of it. But what's the point? FC said Adam Wharton wanted to join Spurs, but Levy wouldn't give the 40 grand a week. And then he went to Palace for 19 million. If that's a true story, it just, says the state of our ownership, really. Like,
we'll probably try and buy him for 100 million next season.
Yeah. It just well, the newspapers will claim we're trying to buy him, then fans will get annoyed when we don't buy him. That's usually what tends to happen. The easiest fan base to wind up, aren't we? But yeah, let's talk quickly, Henry, about Glasner because I think he's an absolute quality manager. When he came, to the Premier League, he'd done something stupid like qualified for Europe like 5 seasons in a row or something like that. He's a really really good manager. How are you feeling at the moment? 12th in the league. Obviously, still got to play tomorrow night. But how are you feeling under his tenure? You're in an FA Cup final. Must be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of touched on earlier, he comes in and it's just every Palace fan is back in love with the club again, and it's brilliant because I mean, obviously we had such a shit time under Hodgson, really, but no, he's just so tactically astute. It's the way that he's kind of taken players like Will Hughes and turned him from a kind of Premier League squad player to one of the better midfielders, definitely in the kind of mid to lower half of the table. The style of play is exciting. It gets you off your seat. You know that you're going to go for it. He doesn't ever kind of accept defeat in the sense that he won't. We play against Man City when we lost, and you might have seen the clip after in his press conference. He goes, if we face City in the final of the FA Cup, Pep's going to have to come up with something different because we will solve this, and it just gets you excited really because maybe last year or the year before you wouldn't go into an FA Cup final against a team like Man City, you just kind of roll over and have your belly tickled. But this year it's more like, wow, okay, we could do something here. And obviously City is still a great team, and I'm not saying we're going to win, but it's more that belief that we'll give it a go. Aston Villa beat PSG in the second leg. I think obviously got knocked out, but you've got to give them the kudos for beating that PSG side that could well go on and win the whole Champions League. And when then a week later we've absolutely spanked them around the park in every position and walked away and taken ourselves into the FA Cup final. So yeah, I mean, the last thing I'd say on his tactics is when you look at United, everything that's wrong with how they play is what's right with how we play. That Amarim's trying to do the exact same system. He hasn't got the players, he hasn't got the personnel, whereas Glasner's gone out and signed players that he knows are good for this system. Obviously, Kamada, who you worked with at Frankfurt when he won the Europa League, came in. A lot of kind of pressure on him. He's our highest paid player, and he hasn't really shown it. Only played in dribs and drabs, and then comes in starting lineup for the semi-final. He's been phenomenal. So he's just kind of reinstalled that kind of trust in the manager that you should have as a fan. I trust that whatever lineup Glasner puts out is the better lineup. Whatever decisions he makes in terms of incomings or outgoings is the best decision. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier as a Palace fan, and it's more a case of how long can we keep hold of him, really.
That's what I was going to say that, Henry, actually, because there's all talk about Tottenham's new manager system. I would love Glasner at Tottenham. I've always said
he'd be
that.
brilliant. He would be brilliant, but then the thing is that you would really have to accept that there's going to be a period where, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think if you had Glasner, I don't think you'd be anywhere near where you are now. I think you'd be, a bad season under Glasner for you guys with your budget, and your team would maybe look like 8th or 9th. And it would take time for it to bed in. But this is the thing, is that he came into Palace, and people often think that we kind of instantly hit the ground running, but there was more of that kind of 2-week period where I think we had 2 or 3, maybe 4 games where it wasn't great. And then we just hit the ground running and started flying.
3 games that haven't been great, mate. So don't worry about it.
Well, exactly. So you might just have to. I mean, obviously, I don't want him to go, but he'd be an incredible fit for you. I mean, we'd be an incredible fit for anyone.
Because for us as Spurs fans, my issue with this whole take a while of turbulence for him to get up and running. Well, we've got that at the moment with our current manager.
Yeah, but there's a while of turbulence, and then there's this.
But this is, and that's when you were saying that earlier. That's 100% what I was thinking. Was for Spurs though, because you've had turbulence in the past, but it's never been turbulence to the point where you've been 16th, 17th. You may have had a bad season and finished 8th or 9th, but it was always around pushing the top 6, which is why you're historically part of that big 6. But this isn't turbulence. This is just, in my opinion, you've got the wrong guy.
And then he goes and wins the Europa League. that's one of our best seasons in 4 decades.
I'm with you, Luke. But I think we have to look at it objectively. Now, obviously, if we win the Europa League, I'm not going to criticise who we've played, but we haven't really played anyone. We've breezed through it really quite easily with the draw. I think Frankfurt was a tough game, but that's the hardest game we've faced, really. So I think you kind of have to look at it objectively as a season as a whole. It's been poor in terms of the Premier League. It's been horrendous. Everyone's saying, the injuries and things like that. But when we got the players back, we're no better. That's kind of the worry for me. And in the Europa League, we haven't played.
But then who have we been out to? I remember Pochettino, I believe it was, went out to someone like Ghent. Jose Mourinho goes out to Dinamo Zagreb. And there are teams who we have lost against before.
Of course.
Now we are beating those teams. Like that.
Let's just see what happens on the artificial pitch in a couple of weeks or next week.
I don't really like this narrative, that I hear all the time, which is like, and it wasn't just Spurs fans, right? I was in another group chat this week, and somebody was saying, I'm not saying, right, that Ange is the second coming of the best manager in the world. I just think, like, if we go out and get another manager, we're just going to be in the same situation. But I was in a group chat this week, and somebody said, Spurs have only ever beat, like, rubbish teams, and any of the decent teams they came up against in the Europa League, they either draw or lost against. I'm like, well, that's fine. But in previous seasons, we haven't got this far because we've lost against, those teams. And so you are right, Dave. We have to see what comes on Thursday, and we will be touching on that when we have to go to Norway. And it's regardless of, like, Bodo Glimt as a team, like, this is going to be a very difficult tie come Thursday. But that's my only issue is, like, if we go out and get, like, a Glasner, and as Henry said, there's going to be a time of turbulence and we've got to be patient and, like, work through it. Well, then we might as well stick with the guy we've got.
But historically, Glasner's teams have always kind of started slow and then built up momentum as the season's gone on. Yeah. He's done that this year, certainly at Palace. As Henry said, last season took a while to get going. Once they hit that form, they were flying. And at Frankfurt was exactly the same. So it's like a thing, it seems, with Glasner. Like, if you look at, say, Pochettino's Tottenham, we would start relatively slow, and then come Christmas we'd hit form, and then we would, go on a bit of a run and fly, towards the sort of end of season. So yeah, I think there's certain managers that you kind of know what you're going to get yourself in for. Like, for example, Bielsa, who's at Leeds and has been at Bilbao, you know what you're going to get. It's flipping carnage. It's high intensity. It's bodies everywhere, etc., etc. But, he's held in probably one of the highest regards in world football. Scott Parker, the last 3 teams that he's got out of the Championship have all been built on defensive solidity. Yes, when he was at Fulham, he had, a bit of a freak in terms of a Championship striker in Mitrovic, and he bagged, nearly 50 goals in a season. So that's what kind of bailed Fulham out, because other than obviously Mitrovic's goals, they weren't really doing a lot. You look at his Burnley team this year, they've conceded 16 goals and they're getting classed as boring Burnley. So this time round, it was a case of, he's built a winning team off of his defence. Like I say, Fulham,
mate.
Like I say, with Fulham, it was like, okay, I'm going to have that defensive structure, but then also I've got a goal scorer, and a little bit similar with Bournemouth, because obviously you had Dom Solanke up there, and Dom Solanke in the Championship, I think that was the first time he actually bagged over 20 goals in a season. So yeah, like I say, it's there's turbulence, and then there's things that stare you glaringly in the face, where you're like, Jesus Christ, like this is ridiculous, this is mental.
And for some managers, it is just the case that their kind of style is that across the whole season they're not very good, and maybe they're good in cup competitions, and maybe that's what we're seeing with Ange. But the problem is, for a team like Spurs, I've said it a few times about Spurs, United, West Ham as well, that if it wasn't for the fact that the bottom 3 this year are so bad, we could be looking at a situation where Spurs and Man United are actually in a relegation battle until the final day of the season, which is unheard of.
And I get that, right? But like, from the other perspective, how many years have Spurs fans craved to win a trophy, right? And we haven't won anything yet, right? So if we do lose and we don't win the Europa League, the season is one of the worst it's ever been, right? Regardless. Like, I think it's like, win this trophy and it turns into a good season, lose at any other point and it's been a terrible season.
Well, I think, if I'd asked you at the start of the season, would you take Europa League trophy and finish 17th, what would you have said?
I mean, I would say yes, because I'd want us to win a trophy. Like, it's
which is fine, yeah, which is completely fine. So what I'm saying is that if I asked you that now, on reflection, or asked you at the time and you said yes, then that's fine. If I'd asked you and you'd said, well, 17th is pretty rough, then maybe not. But I completely understand it. If we win this FA Cup, I couldn't care less where we finish. It would mean everything. I don't care.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd take finishing 17th and winning
Here's
the
a
FA
question.
Cup. Of course I would.
One of this. Let's say, for example, Spurs got relegated, but we won the Europa League. Would we still play Champions League football in the
Yeah,
Championship?
you would. Yeah.
That's mental.
Which I love. I love the idea of that, which is one of the reasons I'm so gutted that the bottom three is so bad. Can you imagine?
No,
Spurs playing Champions League
United being
from the
relegated.
Championship.
Look, I know, and honestly, it's not ideal, right? But this is where it becomes a really difficult situation. Is like, every single season, it's like, but we haven't won a trophy in 18 years, 17 years, and this is everything. You always the excuses. Oh, well, these owners don't win us a trophy. We haven't won anything in this long, and now we're so close to winning something, it's still not good enough. And like that's my only issue with it. But really quickly, let's go back to Palace for a second, Henry, and let's talk about. Actually, do you know what? I want your prediction for the FA Cup final. Just just for a bit of fun. Like, do you think you've got it in you to beat City? Like, what do you reckon is going to happen?
I've got two possible outcomes.
Yeah.
One is that Rodri and Haaland are somehow fully match fit, and they just absolutely bulldoze us, and it will just be another year that's forgotten about, and it will be a boring. Oh yeah, do you remember that time when City it was ruined the romance of the FA Cup? And my other, exactly, yeah. Well, I don't like Watford, so I was quite happy when that happened. But when the other one, which I obviously really hope happens, is that I genuinely believe if we play how we played against Aston Villa, we will win the FA Cup. I think to a man, it was tens all over the pitch. Everyone did their job properly. We had the moments of magic from Eze, Sarr. I think if we perform like that, we could win it.
You know what? My worry for Palace is it'll be De Bruyne's last game.
Exactly. So there's a lot of people were saying, "Oh, there's no," and I got absolutely grilled on Twitter because I kind of tweeted out saying, if Palace win it, it will be the best day in the fans' lives. There's no question. But if City win it, they'll forget about it in a month's time. And I had a load of City fans saying, a month, come on. By the time we got to Wembley Stadium, we would have forgotten. And then you also had a load that were like, you don't know what it's like to be a City fan. Rah rah rah. We want to win it. And which obviously I respect, and I was like, yeah, but for Palace, this would mean more. Of course it would. It's the first major trophy in the club's history. Obviously, some Palace fans, like my dad, will say there's any Data Systems Cup. Like this will be our first major trophy, And I just hope that Glasner can keep that kind of belief within the players. I know the players care. I know the players want it. We've raised almost £45,000 for the display for the final. Put that into perspective, for the semi-final it was about 20,000, so it's going to be bonkers. But amongst those donations, you've got Chris Richards, Dean Henderson. They also donated to the previous one. They just feel like there's such a connection between the fans that if there was a year that it was going to happen, it would be this year. And the icing on the cake, of course, would be if Brighton finish 8th and we somehow win the FA Cup, get Europa League, and stop them from getting Europe. That is the dream
I've
scenario.
never got that rivalry. I'm not going to lie. That's the weirdest rivalry ever.
It's two managers that used to hate each other when they played together, carry through to management, carry through to the fan base. We hate each other. Trust me, I live in Brighton. We do not like each other one bit. It's a rivalry. It's not a derby. It's a rivalry.
Yeah. Do you know what? It could just come down to, like, as you say, which club wants it more. Like, City aren't the City of, like, as in, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way at all, to either side, right? But, like, they aren't on it like they have been in, like, maybe that's a better way, in previous seasons. And so, like, if you're going to get one over on them, like, this could be that time for it.
But we saw that. We went 3-0 up and it got disallowed, and then De Bruyne just decides he wants to be Kevin De Bruyne. And this is the thing. This is the problem with City, is that they have these players where if they want it and they're on it, you can't stop them. But I mean, I didn't actually give you a prediction. I'll back them. I'll go 2-1 Palace. I mean, if that is the case, I land back from Nice 2.5 hours before kickoff. So I'll be jetting straight out from Gatwick to Wembley, but I will not be seen on social media or anything like that for a good few days if we win, because I'm going to be probably in bed nursing the biggest hangover of my life.
Let's just hope you don't splash 45 grand on a few bits of string and a flag that kind of displays as
A
your
bed sheet.
design. Yeah, bed sheet. Yeah, that's it. But Jay Ashraf, thanks for joining. As said, hi panel. If we do make it through, this is Spurs. Obviously, if we do make it through to the final and it's against United, I just don't feel confident getting over the line. United do. I would take Glasner at Spurs. So that's interesting. Let's very quickly talk about Spurs Palace then next weekend. But before we do that, let's really quickly talk about today's score predictions. The reason why I say let's really quickly talk about it, because nobody did anything. So I predicted 3-1 Spurs. The wheel predicted 5-4 Spurs for Winnie. Dave went 2-1 Spurs. Callum got the wheel, I believe, again, 5-3 West Ham. Wes went 2-0 West Ham. No one got any points. Does nothing to the score table, which leaves it joint top, Dave and Winnie on 19, Wes on 16. Me on 8, Callum on 9. Nothing to talk about.
My name should be top there, Luke, mate. Let's be honest here. Come on. I'm actually putting predictions in each week. I'm not relying on AI to try and do it for me.
And let's talk about next weekend's game then, Spurs Palace. Look, Wes, it will all depend on if Spurs really want anything from this season, or if it, is it going to be exactly as it has been? Ange rotating the team after the Europa League game. What are your thoughts? Kind of, it's quite far in advance. And obviously, we do have a midweek game. But what are your thoughts, kind of, on next week? Like, it's not really a derby or a rivalry as such for Spurs, at least. What are your thoughts, kind of, going into that game?
Realistically, our season's done, so in the league, so no one really cares anymore about our league form, because we know it's dreadful, we know it's drastically bad, all of those kind of things. It will heavily depend, I think, on what happens Thursday. I think if we get through, listen, mate, just play the under 23s or whatever. Like, no one will care, because we'll be going to Bilbao and being in that Europa League final. So, like I say, nobody will really kind of bat a massive eyelid. If we are through, I think the crowd will be in a sort of celebratory mood, because obviously, the sort of emotion of getting to Bilbao. Remember the sort of emotion that we had in terms of getting to Madrid in the Champions League final. I think I still remember the hangover from it as well, which was quite good for that last home game of the season. So yeah, it's one of those. I think like I said, it heavily depends on what happens on Thursday. I think if we do go through, I fully expect Ange to rotate the team, and it wouldn't shock me if we have a similar lineup to the one that we saw today. And I think, the scary thing is that Palace do have players that can really hurt us, especially towards the top end of the pitch. Obviously, I mentioned Adam Wharton, but you've got the likes of Eze, Ismail Assar, who I was actually, it was kind of, for me, it was like a pleasing signing that I saw from a Palace perspective in terms of Ismail Assar. Did quite well at Watford when he was in the Prem, and I thought, yes, he's getting his move to Palace. This will be a really good fit. Again, taking him a bit of time to get into the swing of things, but I'm sure Henry will probably vouch. He's sort of coming into his own a little bit now. Obviously, bagged the 2 goals in the semi-final against Villa, so he probably won't have to buy a pint in and around Croydon or anything like that for a while. But yeah, and then obviously Mateta in good form as well. So it's going to be interesting to see if he'll lock himself onto potentially Ben Davis, who I anticipate will probably play, or whether Super Kev has him on lock. So yeah, I think Palace do have those game changers at the top end of the pitch that can really hurt us. So it's going to be a good game. I think there'll be some goals in it as well. Whether we're on the right side of a result for a change, I don't know. That's the only thing for me.
Yeah, definitely. And Henry, I'll come to you next on that topic. Like, in terms of league form, because I haven't kind of looked fully into Palace's kind of where they could end up this season, but is there much to play for in terms of like how high you can finish, or like how are you thinking looking into the rest of this league season? Like, there's only a few games left, and you've got an FA Cup final. Is it also from a fan's perspective, like, actually, let's see if we can just like keep players fit for that final?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, maybe a couple of weeks ago there was an outside chance of ourselves getting that 8th position. I mean, there still is an outside chance of it, but it's the back door's locked kind of thing. It's one of those things where the teams above us, i.e. Brentford, Bournemouth, Fulham, Brighton, unfortunately, all keep winning or keep getting good results. Newcastle couldn't beat Brighton earlier today, which is really frustrating. And, Brentford have suddenly shown that they can beat anyone, really. And then kind of the Bournemouth and Fulhams are still kind of ticking on. But for us, we can still get a record points tally in the Premier League for Palace. Obviously, the team will be looking at trying to finish in the top half. And you make a good point about the final, but we saw it in the build up to the semi-final. Glasner doesn't rotate. He's never rotated. I think he told an anecdote about when he was in his first managerial role in Austria, and he rotated for a cup game. They won the cup game ahead of a big derby at the weekend. They won the cup game, but then they lost the big derby game, even though he'd rested all his big players. So he's not one to rotate. So I don't think you'll be seeing anyone rested, particularly from a Palace stance in any of the games leading up to this final. I think he's more of a momentum coach. And I mean, yeah, like Wes touched on, you've got players that could really hurt you. I think, especially if Mateta puts himself on Ben Davies, I think that could be quite a long evening for Davies, although I've always quite liked him. He is respectfully getting towards the end of his career. And Mateta is a handful for even the best centre-backs in the Premier League. It's just one of those games where I think it will depend, like you said, on whether you get through. I think, as you saw today, Ange probably does or is going to rotate when you've got those big European games coming up. You've got literally nothing to play for in the league. So I think it could be a good game. I'd probably back us to have a bit more momentum. You might have a bit of a hangover from qualifying for the final, which I wouldn't blame you at all. And like you both said, it's a bit of a nothing game for you guys. So I feel like we'll probably...
You can't say qualifying for the final just yet. We're there yet.
No, I know. But it would be ridiculously Spursy of you to somehow not make it there. So yeah, I just think it's one of those where we'll maybe be looking to build momentum, whereas you'll be looking to kind of maybe just rest some players in preparation for the final if you get there.
Yeah, definitely. Just shout out to everybody in the chat really quickly. We'll be doing score predictions for this game after we come to Dave. So, do get your score predictions in the chat. I see David Clark and Stephen have already got your score predictions in. But, yeah, hammer them in the chat for Spurs Palace next weekend. Dave, do you kind of echo what Wes has said? Obviously, we will talk about this semi-final second leg in a minute, and we can talk all about how dangerous Bodo are at home. But in terms of the Palace game, what do you think? Are you bothered? Anymore? Today was probably the first game of the season I actually missed, and not because I didn't want to watch it, but I was out. But I mean, it wasn't like I was trying to find a telly in any corner of the restaurant that I was in. I just, obviously it wasn't on telly. But do you know what I mean? I wasn't that bothered about really kind of watching it because of how the season's going. Do you kind of feel the same?
Yeah, I was playing Tiddlywinks today rather than watching Tottenham. It was more fun. No, but seriously, I don't really care. I just want to win the Score Predictor League now. That's it. At least I can have some silverware this year. That would be a good thing. But no, I think it'll be a case of seeing how Thursday goes. If we get to the final, then it'll be a case of giving those players, the youngsters, a game. Lancashire and West Lancashire still there, he's on loan or whatever else, but. Mikey Moore will play. I think that'll kind of be the case. It'll be more about resting players, giving Ben Davies a send-off, whatever else for the next couple of games. But if we lose, then we don't have a manager because Ange will be sacked. So it won't make a difference, in my opinion. Like I said, the season's done. Whether we finish 16th or 17th, we've avoided relegation. And if we can get a trophy, then, everyone will forget how bad it's been.
Yeah, 100%. So... David Clark has said Spurs 2, Palace 2. Stephen, where's his dad, has said Spurs 2-1 victory. Johnny's still just going on about Spurs in the chat, so I won't read up half of that, but we'll do in a minute.
He's finishing third in the 2-horse race. Ask Johnny.
And we're 3-1 up against Bodo, mate. Not 3-0.
So anyway, let's go through score predictions, and Henry, I'll come to you first just for a bit of fun. What are your thoughts on the score prediction for the Spurs Palace game next weekend?
I will go. I just also like to point out to Johnny, I'm obviously not a Spurs fan, so I'm not an arrogant Spurs fan saying that you're already in the final. I just think from an outside point, obviously you'll talk about in a minute, I think you probably should be there. I'll go It's at Spurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're awful at your place.
Yeah,
I'll
so
go
we.
2-2. I'll go 2-2.
2-2. Nice fence sitter. I like it. Wes, actually, do you know what, Dave?
No. I want to see the will for Winnie first because I know he ain't put a score in.
Okay, do you know what? Let's go in order of where people are. So let me bring up the wheel. We'll go with Winnie first.
If he gets like a 1-0 or something, I'm fuming. I'm just going to copy his score if he does.
So we'll go with Winnie first, and then we'll come to you, Dave, as your joint top, and then we'll come down to Wes, and then Callum, then me. Right, let's spin the wheel for Spurs versus Palace. See what score Winnie gets.
I'll take that.
Another 5-4. So he's got Spurs 5, Crystal Palace 4.
I think the
So-
3-1 before it that it almost landed was probably a little bit.
He normally gets that.
Yeah. So that's 5-4 Spurs for Winnie. Dave, what are you going for?
A Desmond, mate.
Okay, he's going for a little 2-2.
Both sitting on
Wes,
the fence.
what are you going for?
1-1.
Oh,
Actually, no, I'm not doing a Desmond. I don't want to do a Desmond. I was thinking about it a minute ago. I was actually thinking about a Desmond, but I actually want to back Spurs for once. And I don't do that often, so I want to go 2-1 Spurs.
That makes me want to change mine and back Palace.
Just from that decision.
Huh?
Could be throwing away the title from that
Yeah,
decision.
I want to back Spurs a little bit. I don't back them this season, but you know, we're at our own. Palace are crap at our ground.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, Dave, so are we.
Yeah, that's true. No, I've got to try and back us at least once, and I've got 2 games after to absolutely slaughter us. So,
Right, let's bring the wheel back for Callum's score prediction, which will spin the wheel now. The wheel has given him
5-3.
5-3 Spurs. Oh, it's been cruel.
Tell you what, the
today.
2-0 would have been a good automatic score prediction because we do tend to win 2-0 if we win games away from home.
See, I don't see us keeping a clean sheet because we never do. I was going to go for a Desmond, but there's been too many of them in this chat today. So I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs just for banter. I'm already bottom, so it doesn't really matter anymore, does it?
I can tell why with that.
So to be honest, mate, all season I've been reluctant. Actually, I've never, since we've been doing this, never backed against Spurs. So seems that we've lost like 19 league games this season. You can imagine how badly I've done in the score prediction tally. But those scores this week is I've gone for 3-1 Spurs. Winnie has got 5-4 Spurs. Dave has got 2-1 Spurs. Callum's got 5-3 Spurs. And Wes has got a 1-1 draw. Let's see how we get on. And Henry's also got a 2-2 draw as well. I shouldn't forget about that. Let's see how we get on. And just double check see if there's any more in the chat. Where's your mum's got 1-0 Spurs. Jay has gone 1-1 Spurs.
can you just pull up Johnny's 5-0 Palace comment? This is a guy whose team were challenging for the title. Now they're third? And the team that are going to win the Champions League but are already losing. So why is he worried about little old Spurs when this team are falling from grace faster than a bloody asteroid?
There's no Arsenal fan TV on this afternoon, is there?
Did anybody else feel Parisian in the week, or was that just me?
Oh yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I was eating snails and all sorts.
Right, okay. Let's get on to it then. Let's talk about Spurs versus Bodo Glimt in the Europa League semi-final. Look, Wes, Thursday night couldn't have gone much better. Oh, actually, sorry, Ronnie's just gone really quickly. 3-1 Palace. So there we go.
Ooh.
And he's a Spurs
Hello,
So
Ron.
yeah, couldn't have gone much better like on Thursday night, apart from the elephant in the room being Maddison being injured. Looks like he's out now for the rest of the season. Not ideal because actually, as much as we slag him off on this channel, and David Clark hates us for it, he was actually fucking good the other night, and so it's a real shame to see him now be out. Lucas Bergvall obviously fell over himself by the sounds of it in training. He's out for the rest of the season. So the Spurs injury curse continues. Luckily, I hope Dominic Solanke will be okay. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on him because, again, I thought on Thursday night he was brilliant. He seems to have taken a role whereby not scoring every game doesn't mean that he can't be an integral part of this Spurs side, especially in attacking positions. But how good was Thursday night, and what are your thoughts kind of leading up to the second leg away in Norway?
I thought Thursday night was probably our best performance all round of the season. I think obviously a little bit gutting, I think, to concede that goal towards the end of the game, because I think it's just taken a little bit of gloss from some of the fans, and I think it kind of dulled the atmosphere a little bit. I think had we gone there with a 3-goal advantage, I think every Spurs fan would be extremely confident. Now it's a 2-goal advantage. I think some Spurs fans are like, okay, we know what we're like. We've kind of been in this sort of situation before. You know, we're on a plastic pitch as well. Yeah, okay, there's a script written there. And the whole Spursy tag was kind of invented potentially for situations like this. But I just think everybody to a man, like, kind of understood the assignment, if you like, on Thursday. And I just think we were brilliant. I think Bergvall's injury for me is probably more gutting than the Maddison one. I think he's obviously rolled his ankle, picking up what his new contract, which is 50-60 grand a week now probably. So I mean, fair play to him. Yeah, fair play to him. He deserves it. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Swedish Luka Modric, as I've been saying recently. So yeah, no, he's been class. But yeah, I just thought everybody to a man. Like, I thought Basuma. Put it this way, everybody was really surprised that Basuma started, because he's been nowhere near the team recently. But credit where it's due. I thought he was brilliant. I thought Bentancur covered nearly every blade of grass. Defensively, I thought Porro and Udogie was spot on, but supported attacks really well. Brennan Johnson did Brennan Johnson things, hugely ineffective, but bags a goal. It's Brennan Johnson in a nutshell, in a Spurs shirt in particular. Solanke was class. I actually thought Tell did all right when he came on, off the left, but going through the middle, that's when we lost our way a little bit, for me. So yeah, but I just think near enough to a man, I think everybody was brilliant. So I think going into the second leg now, we kind of have to be, put it this way, if we're as on it in the second leg as we were on Thursday, I think we go through like 100%, because everybody was talking about this Bodo Glimt side, and I think they were sort of rabbits in headlights, I think, with the atmosphere, what we generated on the night, and I think they sort of froze. I think if we go there with that level of confidence and almost that little bit of arrogance, that, you know, we can get the job done, not underestimating them at the same time, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, do you know what? We talked about this actually, Wes, before we came on, and I said before Thursday night, like, I wasn't nervous one bit. Like, it didn't even feel to me like a semi-final of a European competition. Like, it didn't feel anything like, you know, when we played Ajax, for example, in the Champions League. Like, but now sitting here on a Sunday after today's game, like, I'm well nervous coming on to Thursday, and we've got a 3-1 lead, because of, like, I know a lot of it's because, like, I've backed down so much this season, and, like, I would love it more than anything for us to then go on and win. And for us to throw it away this late on with a 3-1 lead, like, this is probably the most Spursy thing that could ever happen to Spurs. And, you know, I just hope that, as you say, everybody just has exactly the same outlook as they had in this game. You know, I felt like Ange got things spot on. I felt like the crowd was unbelievable, and well done fair play to the club, you know, the tifo and everything that went on before the game. I thought was sensational. I felt like every single player played their part in it as well. And I tell you what, one person I am going to mention that not a lot of people have mentioned is Richarlison. I thought he was really good first half. Genuinely thought that he got himself around. I thought his positioning in terms of trying to press the opposition. I was unsure why he got fully dropped at half-time. Maybe it's just because he's come back from injury. I don't know. I thought Tell was completely ineffective when he came on. I think it would have made no difference to...
You've got this hate crime, I swear, on Matthias Tell. I swear
like
to God.
Tell, mate. I like Tell.
Mate, I swear to God, you've got some vendetta. You've got some vendetta against Matthias Tell, I swear, because I think I've watched a different game to you, Luke.
Yeah, so
I think the complete opposite.
Yeah,
I thought Richarlison was awful, and I thought Matthias Tell was quite bright.
I was about to jump in and say, what?
So he does, you know, he gets an assist in the first minute, so I don't think he does nothing.
Yeah, but
He's
okay. So
ineffective.
Richarlison gets an assist, but then like other than that, like what's he done? Like for me, Tell was more of a attacking threat when he had the ball, and I felt like Richarlison, okay, was trying to cut in and then deliver balls into the box, but like nearly every delivery was
It
sponsored
was
by
more about,
every.
Yeah, he was
positioning. So
trying to
on
hit
the
the
press,
pigeons,
for
wasn't he?
example, like when we're sat low in our half and we're looking to press the ball to be able to win it back high up, like into the opposition territory. I thought he was brilliant with that in terms of where he stepped into, then allowed other players to come in, and we were able to win the ball back a lot in the first half compared to second half. I honestly don't see what Tell offers. I think there's
You've just got this
100% better
vendetta
players.
against him. You've
Oh,
got a
50
vendetta
million.
against him because he apparently didn't want to. He wanted to join us, then didn't want to join us.
£50 million player, and
We'll
you
Right.
take him.
Huh?
We'll have him if you don't want him. I don't mind.
Yeah,
I
you
quite
can have
like
it, no
him.
problem. 50 million.
Mate,
Tell.
Richarlison costs more than Matthias Tell, right? By the way, I'm throwing that one out there at you. And I
I'm not
personally
saying
think
Richarlison's like decent. I think he was better on Thursday night.
I
just
think Tell has bags of potential, mate. Bags. Like
he's
got
so bad.
bundles and bundles
I
of
just think
potential.
in terms of like his ability on the ball,
he's better than Richarlison. He's better in terms of ability on the ball. He is better than
We're
Richarlison.
not saying who are we going to buy. Are we going to buy Richarlison or are we going to buy Tell? I'm saying we've already got Richarlison. We can sell him. I'm not, it's not a big problem for me. I just wouldn't spend 50 million on somebody like that.
But then we've
you're not
spent
just
more.
playing for what he is now, though. I think he is such a good, like, he's so young and he's such a talent. And I mean, I agree with what the other guys are saying, where it's like he's better on the ball than Richarlison. He probably offers the same, if not more, than Richarlison. I mean, I've never really rated Richarlison. When you guys spent so much money on him, I was just shocked. But I think that. But that's what I mean. But then, so sell him for what you can, if anyone's going to give you any money for him. And then, obviously, what is Tell? Is he an obligation or is it just an option?
It's an option, I think.
It's not a conversation about like, who should we have? Should we have Richarlison on the left or should we have Tell? Like right now, we've got Heung-min-Son, right, who's a better player than both of those, in my opinion. And then you go out and find a better player than Tell. I just think for how much hype people give this player. I don't know how many times I've seen and win.
Are you mad? Are you mad?
Compared
Are you
to
high? Are you high?
I'd like to see a stat.
Brother,
you look at how many times he loses that one-on-one versus winning that one-on-one. Because he loses.
Mate, Richarlison hasn't beaten a player for God knows how long.
We're not having a conversation about who's better, Richarlison or Tell.
But we literally are, because we're sitting here and we've got contrasting views on these two players. Richarlison on Thursday, I'm not the only one that's saying he was poor. He definitely didn't, mate. Matthias Tell in the last, but that doesn't mean he's had a better game.
All sorts of problems,
of course, it does.
No, it doesn't.
All sorts of problems.
He does because he had more of an impact on the game.
Johnson scored, but he was still ineffective. Johnson scores in most games, and he's still ineffective. It doesn't mean Brennan Johnson. It doesn't mean Brennan Johnson has had a better game.
Any goals that's going to win you the tournament.
But take stats out. Yeah, but stats are only a byproduct of what you see out on the pitch. Brennan Johnson scores goals, yes, but his all-round game, he is so ineffective. But people will stat pad now because we're living in a stats and data driven world where actually, if you watched with your eyes, Brennan Johnson in a Spurs shirt is awful, and I will say that with my chest. He is absolutely awful. Put it this way:
Wes, what game was it? Me and you went to see. Was it me and you were both at the same game, and we were both saying the same thing. Brennan Johnson just like running towards the defender. What game was that?
It could be. I'm genuinely being serious here. It could be any game this season. Brennan Johnson,
and this is the problem with our fan base. You sit here and we've got our highest goal scorer in all competitions this season. And we're absolutely slating him non-stop because it's not the perfect type of player.
No, because he doesn't do anything, mate. He's the only winger. He's the only winger that's rapid and can't beat a player.
I agree with what you're saying, Luke. But I think Brennan Johnson might be the only player that argument doesn't work for. I think that you could definitely say that, that there's other players where you could say, okay, well, he scores all the goals, so that's important, and he's an important player. But I do agree that I feel like you could probably have anyone else there, and he'd probably score the same goals as Brennan Johnson. They're not good goals. It's not like he's cutting in and scoring from 30 yards. Exactly. I mean, respectfully,
he has to get into those positions, doesn't he? He has to be there.
Let's get back onto what we're talking about, though, because otherwise we're going to get loose plot here and all arguing about who's Spurs' worst player. Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I think Tell is so much more of a threat. I think defenders, especially when Tell plays off the left, I believe that Tell has defenders worried more than any left winger that we have at Tottenham right now. Son's past it. Richarlison ain't got a Scooby what he wants to do, and he's a miserable bugger at the best of times as well. Honestly, Matthias Tell is probably I'd argue him and Odobert are probably the two most direct players that we have in those forward positions across the front line, and that's what you need.
Bring me Manor Solomon back from loan from Leeds United. He can play left wing instead of Tell, and he cost us fuck all.
I mean, I wasn't against Manor Solomon, to be fair. I mean, I watched him away at Burnley last season, and he was decent. I mean, I think I could have had a game that day against Burnley last season, to be fair. I'd have had my cigar out. I think everybody could have. But yeah, I think Solomon's another one who's direct. The thing with football now is wingers aren't direct. And when you get one that is, i.e. Lamine Yamal, everybody goes, "Oh, fucking hell, he's good." But he's only doing what wingers were doing 15, 20 years ago. You know, it's bonkers the way that football is actually going, and you get stat pads, and then all of a sudden you get people saying that Brennan Johnson's good.
I'll tell you what worries me about Bodo really quickly, because I know we're running out of time. Just what I was saying about Bodo and my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, go for it. Sorry,
the last five games at home, they've beaten everyone by 2 or more goals. Some decent teams as well in there. That's the biggest worry for me on this plastic pitch. It's freezing cold over there. Our players are a bit yellow-bellied. They go missing. They hide behind each other. It's going to have to be a game where they're going to have to find a bit of cojones, some balls from somewhere. Because it's going to be bitter, it's going to be cold, it's going to be hard. Like sliding on that pitch is going to hurt like fuck. They're going to have to take their bumps and their grazes and get through it, because on paper we should be going there and we should be winning. They create so much at home. I don't know how they do it. Obviously, they're used to playing on that pitch. They're used to the bounce of the ball and the difference in how quick the tempo is and the passes are, and the keepers saving shots, etc. So it's going to be really tough. I do think we'll get through. I personally do. I generally think we're going to go for penalties. That's my opinion.
Interesting. That was also said in the chat, actually. And yeah, I think Spurs have got enough in them to get through. I think if we were to lose by 2 goals and to go to penalties or extra time and then penalties and so on, I just think that would be like a really, really poor performance. I get it. Like I've seen it as well. The last 5 Europa League games, I believe, at home they've scored 2 or more goals, but we've already shown we've got enough to be able to keep them out. It's just about kind of doing same again. Henry, as an outsider, what are your thoughts kind of on that? Do you see Spurs getting through to the final?
I think you should. I think obviously Dave makes some good points about Bodo Glimt. I think. I'm not sure what players we're missing that are coming back. I don't know how strong their lineup's going to be.
Very good players.
But the point that I will make is I'll remind you about what happened when you went to Tamworth. And Bodo Glimt are a much better side than Tamworth. And whilst you may have developed and gotten slightly better than them, maybe you're going to be playing against a team that, as Dave mentioned, create a lot of chances at home. They know how to play on this pitch. They probably were absolutely buzzing that they managed to get that 1 goal back, because you could see them getting an early goal with the, I know it's a small ground, but their fans are going to be up for it. It's probably going to be absolutely pissing it down with snow. All of these things. It's going to be, and all of these factors do play a part. Players aren't going to be used to playing on artificial pitches. They're not going to be used to playing in snow, and these things could fall in Bodo Glimt's favour. I hope we just get an exciting goal. I'd love for them to score early, just so we get an exciting game. I'm sure you guys won't, but I could see it being maybe 2-1 to Bodo Glimt and you guys edging through. I think at this point you just kind of take what it is, a semi-final, second leg. The job is to get through, and if you get through, you can be happy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a quick one on this one. I don't know if you know this, just as a football man. I'd be surprised that Spurs don't have like an artificial pitch at the like training facility, just for like in case of bad weather and just stuff so they can always play on it. Like, would that not be something that you'd train on for the week leading up to it, or would it be too much of an injury concern? I'm just curious on that one. Like, how is it so hard going to like a match day when you've got such good facilities like we do to be able to then like work with it?
Yeah, I think we've got a dome, which majority of football clubs have at their training bases these days. So, common sense would say to me, we're going to go and train in a dome in the build up to it. If not, rent out a local college or
I mean, you can't bring the weather
schools
though.
3G.
But this is the thing. I don't think it's the pitch that's the problem. Genuinely, I don't. I think that pitches nowadays are so good that I've played on some incredible pitches. I've been really lucky to do that. And then the team I played for most weeks play on an artificial pitch, and the difference isn't really there. It's more in terms of the kind of mentality and the as tribal as it sounds, our players going to want to slide in for a big block and cut the whole of their leg up when they might not happen. It's going to be those kind of things. And as Dave made a point of the weather, these aren't.
Just so we're aware, it's looking 8 degrees or 7 degrees. And 30% chance of rain right now. So it's not like they're playing like Arctic conditions. Like 7-8 degrees is like classic winter in the UK. I don't think it'd be different if we were playing there in December.
They'll be there with the freezers on the pitch overnight to freeze it up. You know they will.
I love that we're playing someone so far away in Europe that we've got a weatherman section of the show. That's
I mean, we once went out of a European competition to a team with a manager who was in prison, so anything's possible. Put it that way.
Next season, Henry, we're going to have a big map, and Wes is going to do on the green screen is
I love that. Please do.
We're going to bring back the Soccer AM feature. There you go.
Exactly. Right. Let's wrap this up because we're even winding everyone up in the chat now. So let's go round and do our score predictions. I will start for this game. I'm going to say 2-2. I'm going to go Desmond for this one. I don't know. I can see us conceding early, as Henry said. I think we'll have enough to be able to see it through. But any means of like victory as a semi-final as a whole, I don't really mind about. But Wes, what are you going for?
2-1 Spurs. Yeah.
That's probably the more likely, I would say, like result.
Yeah.
When you were waiting for the score, I was thinking he's going to say 2-1 Spurs.
Of course you were. Yeah.
What am I going to say then, Luke?
Or because you're a pessimist, something like 2-0 Bodo Glimt, or like
we lose 2-0. It's Tottenham. It's a European Cup semi-final. We only do things dramatic. We lose 2-0 and we win on penalties.
Yeah, fair enough. Johnny D said 3-1 Bodo. They win on penalties. And then
I heard Johnny's booking a weekend away in Bournemouth for the next bank holiday as well.
David Clark's spot on, by the way, at the bottom.
AstroTurf makes me nervous. I hate such surveys. It's awful to play on. We took 90 minutes to beat a non-league side.
We didn't. We took 120. There you go.
Yeah.
And then what David Clark said, it's the combination of
they should have beat Lazio 7 or 8-0, mate. They peppered them.
The plastic pitch, 7 degrees with the biting wind will feel like 0. Trust me.
This is the thing.
Is this the same Lazio whose player of the year is 37-year-old Pedro, by the way? Is that the same Lazio that we're talking about here?
Well, yeah, that's also a good point. This is the thing. What I like to do before these games is close my eyes and imagine the kind of the picture on the front of the YouTube highlights, and I can just see a Spurs player with his head in his hands, and it's saying 3-1 Bodo Glimt, brackets 4-2 on penalties or something, and I don't know why, but I can't escape it. I don't want that to happen because
we'll definitely have you back
the last thing I'll say is I'd love it to be the year of the underdog. So Newcastle winning a trophy, Spurs finally winning a trophy, and then we can round it off on the 17th. Well, 17th will obviously be first, but with Palace winning the FA Cup. So hopefully it's the year of the unexpected.
Nice one. And just go into this, by the way, when you said the biting wind, it's going to be about 7-mile-an-hour wind as well. So, I mean, I think we're all a little bit getting ahead of ourselves in terms of what the weather's going to be like. But I might be proven wrong. There might be some gloves on display. but I don't think it's going to be as bad as we believe. Look, 7 degrees is nothing to be to be too proud of. It can feel a bit cold sometimes. You might need a jumper on or some long johns, but I'm sure we'll be absolutely fine. Look, thanks to everybody that's tuned in today. Really appreciate you all. Oh, Henry, did you give your score prediction, by the way? Oh, how rude of me.
Well, I jokingly said 3-1 Bodo Glimt and they went on pens. I think, like I said earlier, I think maybe 2-1 Bodo Glimt or 2-2, something around that margin. Yeah, I think Spurs go through though.
Perfect. Sorry, I have to just read out this comment from What's the Point FC. So we might sign a few penguins while we're out there. Right. On that note, let's wrap up.
Too expensive, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to everyone for tuning in once again. There was loads of you in the chat today, so make sure before you leave you like the video and don't forget to subscribe as well. Henry, we'll come to you first, as we do on every week on the show. We ask everyone how the people can find you. So let everyone know how they can find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, if you just search Henry Swain Jern on Twitter, you'll find me. Or if you type in hws.com, it'll take you to my website. I'm doing just kind of like analytical pieces. I do a lot of academy focused stuff because that's kind of my main niche. But yeah, Twitter and then my website. Other than that, I need to start getting into the social medias like TikTok, but I haven't bothered yet. So yeah, but thanks for having me on, guys. I really enjoyed it.
No problem at all. And yeah, if you go to any of our tweets from this weekend, you'll find it. If you click in the YouTube description as well, you will find exactly how to go and follow Henry as well. Dave, how can everyone find you?
Yeah, Park Lane Pod Dave on Twitter or just Park Lane Pod. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch us on all the socials as well. Get over on TikTok, get over on Facebook, get over on YouTube. Click that like and subscribe button, and yeah, we'll hope to bring you more content and more people like Henry on the show.
Definitely. And Wes, fiery this week. How can everyone find you? More fiery content?
Yeah. So Twitter's at Wezo10. Unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account will probably turn into the Matthias Tell fan club before the season's out, just to annoy Luke. That'll be good fun. Instagram's at Wezo32. Usually at a Spurs game, although unfortunately I'm not going to be at one for a little while due to work commitments, etc.
Is that
so I think my
unfortunate
next
though,
game.
mate?
Well, yeah, because I actually like going to watch Spurs, Dave. So yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate for me. But yeah, obviously work comes first. So I think my next game is the Brighton at home game, last game of the season. Sorry about that, Henry. To throw that one in there for you. But yeah, and then anything football coaching related, it is at Co4MK or Kickoff Football Academy across your socials, which Dave's dog's really pleased about, by the way. So yeah, Luke, that is pretty much it.
Amazing. No, thanks again, everyone. You can follow me, Luke_Park Lane, but more importantly, go over, search Park Lane Pod or Park Lane Podcast wherever you go on social media. If you're on any podcast platforms, you can find us there. We are pretty much everywhere that you can find us. So yeah, go over and search all of that good stuff, get all of our content, and we will have some clips from this week's show going out this week. Who knows what the AI will pull out for us this week. God knows there might be some arguments in there. But look, thanks once again for everybody tuning in. Do appreciate every single one of you, and we'll see you all next week at 7 o'clock Sunday night. Once again, massive thank you, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.